It's been a very long time since I've gotten a day off. I planned on just hanging out on a Sunday, no accepting any cases or going into the office. I didn't even want to go out grocery shopping and instead just would order in some food. It was as if my partner could sense my plans. The moment I woke up and started to brush my teeth, I got a phone call from Nick. My hand hesitated for a moment over my phone. I caved and answered it. "Do you have gloves?" The summer was almost over and fall right around the corner. It felt still hot outside and nowhere near cold enough to need gloves. Nick's question made me pause for a second. I suspected our next job would be either out of season or in a colder region. "I should have some packed away. I'll bring some for you. Can you be ready in around an hour?" With a sigh, I said I could. There went my day off. Oh well, it would be better if I went out and helped someone than if I stayed home and did nothing. I always did have the choice to refuse a job with Nick, but I couldn't do that. Our work was important, most of the time. We were the only ones interested in a certain case and often wound up saving people from a supernatural threat. And sometimes we found a new pet for Nick to take home. So, it was all worth it. I dug out all my warm clothing, wishing I owned some boots. Nick arrived early with some bags. He thought ahead and brought some winter boots and gloves for me to try on. I still had his pink scarf from an earlier case. I started sweating under all the layers by the time we were ready to go. He only wore a simple jacket over his suit, although he didn't need it. He didn't have any issues with the cold, a trait I wish I possessed. There have been strange reports at a ski lodge during the last few days. We've been requested to investigate. Nick gave me a basic rundown of what our case would be. He paused at my apartment door to place a charm on the side and then took out a key. Oddly enough, it fit inside my lock even though the key was the wrong shape. When the door opened, snow started to blow into the entranceway, regret starting to form in the back of my mind. This was not going to be a fun job if we were stuck in a frozen wasteland. Nick went first and helped me into the ankle-deep snow. The wind froze my nose in seconds. If it wasn't so gusty out, I might have been fine. When the door closed, I saw Nick connected my door to a shed in the middle of a frozen forest. He adjusted his jacket and got ready to go. And right then a sleek black shape darted between two trees, causing me to shout. If Nick had already given me my gun, I would still be useless because I couldn't be able to shoot wearing puffy gloves. The dark shape skidded to a stop in front of us. The long noodle-like body arched up, and I saw a scarf wrapped around his neck. I never in a million years thought I would see this creature again. At least, never on a case. "Mage, what are you doing here? Are you going to help?" I asked, looking over at the creature. Mage knew the alchemist who created Nick. He was covered in dark black feathers with a set of wings on his back, a pale face at the end of his long neck and thin limbs deep in the snow. He made a disgusted look at my suggestion. "Wrong," Mage said with a stomp of his foot. He darted back off into the woods and I looked up at my partner trying to get answers. From what I could tell, Nick had been struggling to deal with Mage for a while now. He almost sighed at the appearance of the creature. "He's been hanging around my place. I don't mind it, but he started to say he was going to watch my work. He's threatened to kill me if he decides I'm weak," Nick said as we followed the trail Mage left. "Is he still on that? I thought we took care of it the first time we met," I said, appalled by the behavior. "I believe he just wants a reason to be around someone, and is after the free food," Nick said, not appearing worried in the slightest. I should have been concerned over his safety. Nick had his strengths, but not in a traditional sense. He wasn't the strongest agent fighting wise, but one of the kindest. It really helped him out on a few jobs. We caught up to Mage, who started complaining about the cold, very bitter that he tagged along. I suggested he should just go home and his answer was to kick snow in my face. This noodle wasn't my favorite person. We nearly got into a fight, but Nick saved the day by feeding Mage some handmade cookies he had stashed away in his coat. I imagine he only made those cookies for peacekeeping. How Nick put up with Mage for more than a few minutes was a wonder. We walked in the bitter cold. Nick could have gone faster, but he needed to wait for two slower people to catch up. I was so relieved when a ski lodge built on the side of the mountain came into view through the trees. The hike up to it would be steep, but worth it to be somewhere warm. Nick shattered all my hopes as we kept going past the road. "We'll be looking around here for a few more hours, then go to the lodge," Nick said, looking over his shoulder at us. An issue came when we got to the other side of the road. The snow became so deep I couldn't really walk through it. Each step took at least a minute and I fell more than I stood upright. Nick was having no issue going through the snow and he got a few steps ahead before pausing to see where I went. I was face down, drowning in the cold for a second. It felt embarrassing to say the least. Weren't there snowshoes or something like that to make this all easier? I would be utterly useless on this job unless we figured something out. Nick made his way over to Mage, who wasn't having as many problems as myself going through the snow. "Do you think you could help?" Nick asked the creature, motioning towards his fallen partner. "What? I shall do no such thing. I am not a tool to be used, nor." Nick took out some more cookies from his pocket. Mage snapped his face forwards to snatch them from Nick's hand before he finished speaking. He quickly ate them, but his expression did not change. His body acted on his own, accepting the offering, and now he needed to help. With a yell of frustration, his body grew. Mage's head ducking down to grab the back of my coat with his mouth. I got tossed in his back, solving the walking problem. Mage was really all talk. He would whine and complain, but in the end, do anything Nick would ask of him. It was because Nick looked similar to Alabaster, and Mage cared deeply for that person from long ago. To him, my partner was the last trace of someone he respected. Nick carried on, but thanked Mage. I could swear Nick's face twitched in a smile for half a second, which made Mage let out another frustrated groan. That smile, his biggest weakness. Traveling now much easier. The wind died down a little, but I still felt cold as hell. My face hurt, and I was thankful for the gloves Nick brought. Mage started back at complaining over how cold he felt. Just a few more hours before we could go somewhere with a fireplace. Being a human really didn't do me any favors most of the time. I wasn't certain of what we were looking for. We found no odd tracks, heard no weird sounds, just the howling of the cold wind through the trees when it blew. We were about to give up when we stumbled into a clearing. At first, it appeared normal. As I looked, I saw that the trees were ripped aside and snowed over. Something came through here and wrecked the place. It looked odd, to say the least. Do you have any idea what could do this? A Yeti, maybe? I offered. This is not their territory. Nick responded as he got down low to brush some snow away and look over a torn stump. So, Yetis were real. I wondered if we would ever do a case involving them, but if I could help it, we would never do a case in the snow again. I would turn into a popsicle if I didn't get inside soon. Nick knew that, but didn't want to leave just as we found something. The longer we stayed inside the clearing, the more wrong it felt. A strange feeling worked its way up through my stomach. Something appeared oddly foreign about this place. It was hard to explain. The trees didn't appear right. Something about their texture and the pine needles were all wrong. Human, can you feel anything? Mage offered, finally saying something other than how cold he was. Yeah, a little. This place doesn't feel right. As if. I trailed off, trying to put the feeling into words. As if this isn't your world. The creature offered. I paused, thinking about it. He was right, it did feel like that. As if I was staring at a realistic video game. A place that didn't actually exist in my world. I nodded, and Mage turned his head back to look over the clearing. He also appeared uneasy about all of this. I could see his mind working overtime behind his eyes. He clearly knew something we didn't and was debating on what to do. Without warning, Mage took off like a bullet. I nearly fell off his back, my hands clutching his dark feathers for dear life. I shouted at him to slow down as the cold air stung my face, making my eyes water. Mage didn't listen. He kept dodging between trees. Just as I thought it couldn't get any worse, we came to the edge of the woods and Mage leapt off a sheer cliffside, screaming the entire way down. I wrapped my arms tightly around his neck, praying to not get tossed off. His body slammed into the ground, and the force caused my body to buck off of him. I landed in the snow and was buried for a few seconds. Shoving my head back through the surface, I saw Nick also jump down to follow us. I watched in horror as he fell. Mage sensed something falling towards him. He snapped his neck around to catch Nick's jacket and place him in the snow beside me. What the hell was that all about? I yelled, my knees too shaken to stand. I'm doing all the work for you because you are too weak. I brought you to the monster you were looking for. Mage scoffed. True to his word, a roaring, echoing cry came through the trees. It sounded powerful enough to shake snow from the pine needles. I stumbled back to my feet, trying to see what we were going to face, only to be blasted by a sudden wind. The sky turned from clear to overcast in a second, with snow now obscuring our sight. Another roar came, and I couldn't even see Nick through all that snow. I called out for him, my voice getting carried away on the wind. I could hear more trees being torn out and tossed aside. One landed so close by that it was a miracle I didn't get crushed. Through the snow and the sudden darkness, I saw a hint of what we were up against. Towering over the tree line, a set of glowing red eyes scanned the area, looking for anything alive. A hand wrapped around my waist, startling me. Nick somehow found me and took a hold to try and get us away. The monster saw us as well. The eyes came down low, and so close to us that I could see a dark outline of a flat face. Nick curled his body around mine as the creature let out a breath of cold air on us. The temperature dropped so low I could hear it freezing Nick's jacket. If he hadn't protected me with his body, I would have been frozen solid. When the giant beast paused, Mage flew in to grab us and make a run for it. As the frozen breath came again, Mage leapt in the air, trying to fly away from the danger. His feet caught the edge of the freezing wind, and he nearly dropped us as he let out a yell. For a half a second, I thought we managed to get away. A massive claw shot out through the snow and grabbed Mage's thin body. He screamed and dropped Nick, and I, my partner, made terrible cracking noises as he shifted our falling bodies around to try to be the one to hit the ground first. I was seconds away from either dying from the fall or getting fatally injured, but I still cried out Mage's name, worried for him trapped inside the huge claw. Turns out I didn't need to worry much for him. Nick got one hand free and let the final few cookies in his pocket fly out his hand. We were so close to the ground that I could reach out and touch it when a flash of light came from Mage's body. Countless wings made of rays of light sprang forth, causing everything to hover wherever the light touched. Not just us, but the monster and any loose branches and twigs on the ground. When each of those wings flapped, we both were slammed to the ground, and the force knocked me out for a while. I've heard it's very bad to be knocked out cold even for a few minutes. I probably should check with a doctor to see if I've gotten any brain damage from how often I've been knocked out. But anyway, I woke up startled, my last memory being of Nick half frozen. I sat up so fast it made my head woozy. A chill came across my chest as my head cleared. I looked to be inside a cave instead of being outside in danger. Furs were piled as a makeshift bed. To my horror, someone had taken off all my clothing other than my boxers while I slept. A figure sitting near the nest of fur moved, and I let out a choked noise and covered up. The person stared at me was doing it under a mask made from a skull of a bird. Black feathers and rough beads surrounded their head. Their outfit was made of furs and leather. Aside from the skull, they didn't appear very threatening. "We are sorry for removing your clothing. We warmed them by the fire. One moment." The person stood up and left through the only pathway out of the small room of the cave. If my clothing was soaked from the snow, it was a better idea to get me into something dry. I wondered where Nick and Mage went and how I ended up there. When they returned, they brought the bundle of my winter outfit, the beads on their head clicking as they moved. I was given some privacy to change, and thankfully my clothes were warm although slightly smoky. I walked out, seeing a walkway with a few openings carved into the stone. "Are Nick and Mage here?" I asked my guide. With their clothing and voice, it was hard to determine their gender. "Yes." He refused to give up his clothes, so we forced him by the fire. "The dark creature is also here. They are not far. Come along so we can speak about why you are here." I nodded, ready to follow in silence for a while. Through a few confusing turns, we made it to the main room of where these people live. I could see Nick sitting by a fire a little bit away, along with some more people wearing the skull masks all doing different chores. I was stopped by my guide placing a hand on my arm before I walked towards Nick. "Again, we are sorry for stripping you. If it offers you any comfort, our tribe is similar to yourself. We are all born female, and once we are mature, we choose if we would like to become male or not. Most outside the tribe tend to not understand our ways and look down on us. It was nice seeing someone like yourself even if we invaded your privacy." I felt a little embarrassed, but I did feel a bit better after I heard how this tribe worked. I really doubted there would ever be someone out there thankful to find out about how I was. It a bit of a nice surprise, and I could easily look past being almost fully naked in a strange place. With my guide by my side, I made my way over to Nick, thankful he looked alright. I thought someone had given him a blanket for his lap. The black mass turned out to be Mage draped on his back over my partner's legs, his belly in the air. Nick brushing his fur with a comb made from bone. I don't think I would ever understand Mage. At least they were both safe. "Nicky, are you alright? You warm enough?" I asked as I felt his jacket to see if it was still wet or not. He assured me he was fine even though he did feel a bit damp. Mage didn't even move when I sat down. I lifted one of his legs only for it to fall back down limply. He was very much enjoying being by the fire and being pampered. "Did Mage take care of the monster?" I asked. If that wasn't the case, I doubted we would be here. A swift kick to my chest from one of his back legs showed Mage was awake. But I was wrong. This creature making it really hard to like him. I couldn't make a dent in the thing. I could only get you two away from it. It was a risk coming here, but it felt similar to the monster, so I assumed they might know something about it. Mage said, still not moving his head. Looking over the few bird-masked people, I doubted they would have anything to do with the beast outside that had almost killed us. They were so peaceful compared to it. So far, they'd done nothing but help. And what was that creature anyway? Just as I was about to ask questions, another of the masked ones sat down on the other side of the fire. They were massive, at least double the size of anyone in the room. Their feathers were silver, and they had a tall decorated walking stick in hand. That beast is a creation of our tribe. However, it was never meant to be in this world or able to harm others outside from this tribe, the newcomer said, and I guessed it was the tribe leader. They're suffering from an overlap. You know how there are a bunch of worlds out there, right? Well, theirs and ours are overlapped for a while. Because of that, they can't leave this cave, and that monster is stuck appearing between our world and theirs. Mage explained as if that information wasn't shocking. My head swimming from that information. I heard about the other worlds but never thought I would ever encounter someone from one. No wonder why that clearing didn't look right. Those trees didn't belong to this planet, but to another that should have never come into contact with our own. Your dark creature is correct. In time, this place and our tribe shall return to our home. We are concerned about our manifestation remaining behind. If that happens, there is no way for someone of your world to kill it. The leader made a motion with their hand, asking someone to bring something to us. In a minute, one of the tribe members brought over a cracked longbow flickering with flames on each end. the fire cool to the touch. The leader placed it in their lap and continued speaking. That manifestation is all of our hardships and rage from the cold times. When the warm times are about to shift, we create the creature and the sacred weapon to kill it. That way we are able to carry on without holding on to what happened in the cold. However, our worlds overlapped before we could kill the beast. Our weapon became cracked, and we are unable to leave and finish the job. That totally a problem. After seeing how strong Mage was, I doubted we could find someone stronger to come in and see if they could kill this creature. The only ones out there that could possibly beat him in magic would be Anker or Fee. Neither one were good options. Is there any way to repair the bow? I asked, hopeful. The leader shook their head, the beads clicking as they moved. They were stroking the bow with a thin hand which showed their age. We do not have the materials in this world. This bow is able to fire one more arrow. That is a risk. One arrow is all it takes to burn up that manifestation. The cracks shall also cause the bow to fire back, harming the one wielding it. They shall be terribly burned. The leader did not want to ask one of us to take the hit in order to kill a monster they created as part of a tradition. What other choice was there? We couldn't risk the monster staying in our world when the overlap ended. I didn't want any of us getting hurt either. The ski lodge wasn't too far away. Unless someone killed that thing, innocent humans would be killed. I can do it. Nick spoke up. Mage finally raised his head a little, interested in the conversation. With some effort he rolled around so he was sitting by the fire and no longer across Nick's lap. He wanted to watch our reactions to this line of conversation. You'll be risking your life by firing that bow, Mage said with an odd expression on his face. It was impossible to tell if he started trying to talk Nick out of it, or going to push him into a dangerous position. I really didn't want Nick to be the one fighting. We only had one shot, and that one shot could end up killing him. With all eyes on him, Nick reached forwards to grab a hold of a flaming piece of wood in the fire pit. I moved to stop him as he pulled his hand back. The burn mark healing in seconds. He was fine in the cold, but I didn't know the heat didn't bother him either. After all, he was almost taken out by a heat spell during the case where we found Luna. Then again, I didn't have a clue how hot that spell got. It could have been way hotter than a simple fire. I heal quickly from flames. The blowback from the bow won't kill me, he said, but it didn't make me feel any better. What if he couldn't heal all of the damage? Was he risking burning off a few fingers, or something worse? Sensing my doubt, Nick met my eyes and gave me a small nod, silently saying to trust him. There was a monster out there and he was going to deal with it, no matter the cost. Seeing his resolve, the tribe leader stood up to hand Nick the bow. We now had a weapon on our side. Only one shot though. I wondered how we could assure we got that shot to hit. I would be fairly useless in the snow and didn't know what I could do to help. However, Mage did. He was staring at me with a dangerous gleam in his eyes. I think we should use Skylar as bait, he said, Nick against the idea outright, without any more cookies stashed away. There was no longer a way to get Mage to do what we wanted. He would be a better bait option. He could fight back and move in the snow. I could do none of those things. When I pointed those facts out, Mage didn't appear moved. You have your gun, correct? Mage said, and I shook my head. It's too cold for me to use it. Nick did give me my holster with 4 magazines, but my gloves were too big to fit between the trigger, and 5 minutes outside would freeze my joints, so I wouldn't be able to pull the trigger when I needed to. Plus, bullets wouldn't do anything to this monster but piss it off. Mage asked me to hold out my hands, and when I did so, he swooped in and licked the back of both of them. I groaned and pulled away disgusted. There, for one day your hands shall be unaffected by the cold, Mage said proudly. I tended to forget he lived up to his name sometimes. Did you need to lick me to do a spell like that? I said, not impressed. No, I wanted to gross you out. Now hold still so I can make it so you can travel easier in the snow. I was not letting him do anything else to me, so I got up and ran as Nick ignored us and kept talking with the tribe leader about our plan. My pleas for help were left unanswered as Mage tackled me to the ground. I unable to push his face away as he licked my hair the way a cat would. I suffered for a while until Nick finally rescued me and lifted Mage off. He didn't set the beast down until we were out of the cave, ready to take on a monster somewhere deep inside the snow-covered forest. Whatever Mage did actually worked. I walked through the snow as if it was nothing this time around. It made me wonder why he didn't do this to start with. He might be pretending to not like us, but deep down, he really wanted someone on his back giving him attention. Or maybe he was just stealing my body heat back then. Very soon, Mage complained about the cold once again. Every step, he reminded us of his condition. Since we wanted the monster to come to us, I wasn't telling him to shut up. At least not yet. So far there weren't any signs of the creature. The cold already starting to get to me everywhere except my hands. My toes were frozen in my boots. Nick stopped in a clearing, deciding this was a good place to set up. Above us stood a cliff he could wait and fire from there. Before we left, the tribe leader warned us the monster may be able to sense the bow, making our job harder. That meant Nick couldn't be right next to the bait to shoot. At least the cliff made it so he wasn't shooting through trees. Mage stayed in the clearing, pacing in and out of it, muttering about how cold it felt and how he just wanted this to all be over so he could go home. For how annoying he acted, he'd really done a lot for us. I almost told him he could just leave without us, but if something happened and Nick messed up the shot, I would need Mage to save us again. Most of our jobs involved waiting. Being out in the cold with the sun slowly setting while a massive monster was out there felt like the worst kind of waiting. For a few hopeful minutes I thought the monster wouldn't show up that night, but I was horribly wrong. The clouds overhead became darker and an arctic wind blew strongly, freezing me down to the bone. Both were signs the beast was on the way. I listened for heavy footsteps, or anything, with my hand at the ready to draw my gun. Crashing sounds coming from the forest gave me enough warning to dive out of the way. The snow cushioned my roll. The monster tore through the trees and slammed into the rock cliff so hard that it knocked snow and a few rocks loose. Recovering quickly, it stood up and roared before I could reach my gun. The roar so loud it shook the ground and kept me down. My ears rang from the noise and my head hurt. Looking up, I saw it was about to blow the instant freezing attack my way. I ran through the snow and behind a tree just in time before I saw a blast of wind on either side of me. The beast must have known someone wanted to kill it. It ran around the clearing on all fours, more focused on staying on the move than killing the one hiding behind a tree. I needed to get it to stay still so Nick could get his chance. I ran out and fired a few rounds into the monster's body, causing it to turn towards me. It let out an angry hiss and those red eyes glared from the flat face. Aside from those eyes and large mouth, it had no features. Its massive humanoid body was covered in gray fur, and it had an arched back so it could walk on 2 feet or run on all fours. I only had one chance. Catching its attention, I ran under the cliff, firing while aiming for its eyes. It did not like my gun at all but wasn't harmed. Standing on 2 legs, it started to inhale, opening that mouth filled with sharp teeth widely. I trusted my partner and braced myself as I waited for Nick to shoot, or that beast to attack, whichever came first. To my shock, Nick didn't just fire from where he was. He took a running jump at it. He leapt off the cliff directly towards the monster's open mouth, his form perfect as if he'd fired a longbow 100 times before. The arrow left the bow, causing the string to snap. An explosion of fire blew back into my partner's face, covering his entire body. I let out a yell of dread for him. At least he accomplished our goal. The arrow went right down the monster's throat. A shockwave knocked me off my feet and slammed my body into the rocky cliff. The beast exploded in short-lived flames as Nick fell to the ground, the snow putting out the fire covering him. The same shockwave that knocked me over traveled through the snow and through the forest. I was alive, but I didn't know about Nicky. I rushed over to him, lifting him under his arms from out of the snow. The bow broken in pieces through the clearing. His suit only slightly singed. The suits were made to protect them and repair themselves from damage. However, his regular jacket was ruined. His hands were badly burned and his face was beet red. The most damage done to his cheeks, as if he had a bad sunburn. How he still had eyebrows was a miracle. Trying to shake him awake, I looked around for Mage for help. Seeing the slim creature pacing, I called him over. "Can you get us out of here?" I begged him. "No, I've done enough. You two need to figure it out." He huffed. The cold really got him in a nasty mood. My pockets were empty of any treats to offer in order to get us out of there. A small rumbling in the distance caught my attention. On top of Nick not waking up, and Mage being uncooperative, the shockwave had done the worst thing it could do. It jarred some snow along the cliffs loose. A huge wall of white was rushing down toward us. I hauled Nick up, trying to drag him along. We needed to get out of there in the next few seconds. Another issue that halted my progress was that Nick was heavy as a rock. There was no way to get him out of there. I huffed and sweated, dragging him towards a tree, hoping we might be able to hide behind it and avoid the massive oncoming snow headed straight for us. Mage started to pace more, clearly agitated. There was something wrong with him beyond being cold. His brain simply wasn't working. He very upset over being cold, but refused to help us leave. I could swear he started malfunctioning. The sea of snow reached the cliff well before I got behind the tree. It started to pour over into the clearing when Mage finally snapped. "I'm cold," he yelled, stomping his foot. Whatever he did was powerful enough to blow away not just the wall of snow coming towards us, but all of it inside the clearing. The frozen ground exposed. I got tossed back with Nick inside the piles of snow that were cast aside instead of into a tree, which would have killed one of us. I utterly shocked and I opened my mouth to say something, only to find no words. "Let's go to the ski lodge," he suggested, excited, as if it was the best idea ever. I could only nod and agree. Bringing us there was the easy part, getting a room much harder. We finally got Nick to wake up. He covered his burned hands with my gloves so we could use his card and get a room. His face looked the same as a lot of careless skiers who were not aware the snow could give you a sunburn. We bribed Mage with whatever room service he wanted if he could go back to the tribe and tell them the monster was killed. It took a lot of promises to get him to leave once he was somewhere warm. It very a good thing Nick paid for this room. I worried about how much it would cost for even a single night in a place like this. The room came with 2 beds, a fireplace, and an amazing view of the mountain. But after that day I never wanted to see snow again. Nick started taking care of his hands and he told me I should take a hot shower to warm up. After seeing how big the tub looked, I decided I would relax a little. We did almost die a few times after all. I had earned this. My apartment tub was far too small to sit in comfortably, and after a few years I'd forgotten how nice relaxing in hot water felt. That got ruined in less than an hour. Mage came back and did the unforgivable. He rushed into the room while I screamed for him to get the hell out. Ignoring the curses, he dove right into the tub as I jumped out and covered myself with a towel. He said he kept his eyes closed the entire time, but that didn't make me any less pissed off. The bastard stole the tub, turning on the hot water long enough for it to spill out. At least there was a drain in the floor for that. I got dressed, pissed off over being unable to kick Mage out. When I came back out to our room, I saw Nick asleep on the floor for some reason. I got stuck hanging out with some weirdos. Any attempt to wake him up wasted. My partner out like a light with a blanket barely wrapped around him. At least he was getting some rest. After everything, I figured it would be best to turn in myself. That also impossible from all the food Mage ordered coming to the room in waves. I really needed to keep reminding myself how much he had helped us out on that case. Nick slept through the clattering dishes coming inside, and Mage using the hairdryer on his feathers when he got out of the bathroom to eat. It's a shame that the last of Alabaster's creations is still so weak, Mage commented as he ate. He was a very tempting target to kick. After everything he'd seen so far, he still called Nicky weak. He might not be as crazy powerful as something that lived for 1,000 years, but he certainly pulled his own weight, and he always did any job without any hesitation. Did you see him? He shot that thing in the face. I argued. Taking up the bow was an example of his weakness. I would have assumed he would have gotten past that by now, but he is still stuck being a stone. He could have easily put his body on the line because it does not matter to him. He is so disconnected from himself, he can easily give up any part. He sees himself not as a person, but as a tool. Nothing can make him fearful because nothing matters. Nothing can truly harm him because nothing is important. That way of thinking is weak. At first, we were going to get in a fight, but a feeling stopped me. Mage was saying these things not out of disgust, but worry. He wanted to watch over Nick to see him become more of a person in his eyes. I sat on the edge of the bed thinking about that. Since meeting him, Nick had become much more sociable. He now smiled sometimes and opened up about his interests. At the same time, he would still put his life or body on the line if needed. An honorable act of bravery Mage that saw as a weakness. Are you worried about him? I asked, feigning innocence. Mage choked, his feathers puffing, and his face twisted in a snarl with a hint of red on his cheeks. He could deny his feelings all he wanted, but it was pretty clear he was only around to protect Nick. Wrong, he hissed, but couldn't come up with any reasons about why I would be. He ignored me and angrily ate through his bribes. There wasn't much of a chance of him showing how he really felt. At least, there wouldn't be if the ski lodge didn't have issues with their power that night. When I finally went to sleep, I woke up later feeling a bit cold. Heavy snow was coming down beyond the window and a wind rattled the building. Sensing eyes on me, I turned my head to see a dark shape at the foot of my bed. I choked in fear, not remembering Mage also stayed in our room. With some huffs and displeased sounds, he got to work. Removing the side table from between the beds, he pushed them together. Sitting up, I started to ask what he was doing. A wing pinned me back down, making it impossible to move. With his long neck, he reached down, hauling Nick back on the second bed with his teeth. In the dark, it appeared Nick was still asleep. Sheet and blankets were moved. With a few swift movements, Mage got between Nick and I, his wings pinning us down and pulling us in close. Both wings were wrapped around our chests in case we tried to escape. At least it felt warm. Mage fell asleep the moment he had 2 living space heaters in his arms. His wing was tucked under my chin. With the light from the snow, I could somehow see inside the room. When I looked over, I saw Nick awake, the wing over his mouth, under his nose. The whole thing so ridiculous, I let out a small laugh, accepting my fate. A small sound came from my side, causing me to look over again. It was faint and just a few huffs of breath, but without any doubt Nick had laughed. I didn't even know Nick could laugh. I smiled in the dark, seeing he was already falling asleep again. In time, I doubted Nick would keep acting like a stone. Now, being under a few heavy blankets and under a large wing may sound warm and comfy at first, but when I woke up, I was sweating. The nearest I came to death on that case from overheating while I slept. I swore then that I was never doing a case in the snow again.